Breaking. Vladimir Putin just gave Keir Starmer 72 hours to respond, or face consequences that Downing Street is too afraid to even name publicly. This morning, Westminster woke up to chaos. An encrypted message from the Kremlin arrived at the Foreign Office just after dawn. Officials expected routine complaints, sanctions, espionage accusations, the usual diplomatic noise. What they got was something else entirely. According to multiple government sources, the message was direct, aggressive, and carried demands that left senior ministers visibly shaken. Within hours, emergency meetings were called across Whitehall. Intelligence chiefs were pulled from their morning briefings. Military commanders received urgent notifications, and Keir Starmer's government shifted into full crisis mode, the kind of response usually reserved for active threats on British soil. If this story matters to you, hit subscribe now, because this situation is developing by the hour, and you'll want to see what comes next. Here's what we can confirm so far. The Kremlin's message accused the United Kingdom of crossing a red line, allegedly participating in covert operations that Russia claims threatened its national security and regional stability. Moscow demanded an immediate response, and according to leaked intelligence briefings that surfaced later in the day, that demand came with a specific timeline. Now Downing Street has refused to confirm the exact contents of the communication. The phrase national security reasons has been repeated so many times today that it's starting to sound less like a justification and more like a shield. But the government's silence is telling its own story. Because when ministers dodge direct questions, when the Foreign Office refuses to comment on basic details, when every official answer sounds rehearsed and careful, people notice. And people are asking the obvious question, what exactly is Britain hiding from its own citizens? The lack of transparency has only fueled speculation. Social media is flooded with theories, news channels are running constant coverage, and with every passing hour that Downing Street stays quiet, public frustration grows louder. Inside the House of Commons, the tension boiled over within minutes of the session starting. Starmer stood at the dispatch box, his voice controlled but noticeably tight. He insisted Britain had acted entirely within international law. He praised the work of UK intelligence services. He promised strength, resolve, and unwavering commitment to national security. But MPs weren't satisfied, not even close. Conservative backbenchers demanded full and immediate disclosure. They accused the Prime Minister of hiding behind vague assurances while the country faced a genuine threat. Reform UK went further, claiming the government had provoked a nuclear power without any coherent strategy or exit plan. Even Labour loyalists, usually reliable defenders of the front bench, looked uncomfortable. They shifted in their seats, exchanged glances, and waited for answers that never came. The chamber became a pressure cooker. Accusations flew across the aisle. Shouts echoed off the ancient walls. Points of order were raised and ignored. And through all the noise, one question kept cutting through everything else. What is in that message that the government refuses to show us? Starmer offered no new information. He repeated his earlier statements almost word for word. And when the session ended, MPs left the chamber more frustrated than when they entered. This is where the story takes a much darker turn. Multiple sources, speaking anonymously because they weren't authorised to discuss classified briefings, claim that Putin's warning contained a second section. A section that Downing Street has kept completely hidden from the public and even from most members of Parliament. According to those sources, Russia's demand wasn't just about UK intelligence activity or diplomatic complaints. It was far more specific and far more dangerous. Moscow allegedly wants Britain to withdraw active support from a key Eastern European ally, a move that would fracture Western unity, weaken NATO's Eastern defence posture, and send a clear signal to every nation in the region that British commitments can be broken under pressure. If this is true, it puts Starmer in an impossible position with no clean exit. Agree to the demand, and Britain looks weak on the world stage. Allies lose faith in London's reliability. Decades of strategic partnerships and mutual defence commitments begin to crumble overnight. Every nation watching would learn that threatening the UK produces results. Refuse, and Britain faces direct confrontation with a nuclear-armed state that has repeatedly shown it follows through on threats. A state currently engaged in the largest European land war since 1945. A state that has already demonstrated willingness to absorb massive costs to achieve its objectives. There is no good option here, only choices between bad and worse. And everyone inside Westminster understands exactly how narrow the path forward has become. Outside Parliament, the British public made their voices heard. Protesters filled Westminster Bridge within hours of the first news reports. The crowd was mixed. Some waved Union Jacks and chanted for strength against foreign pressure, demanding that Britain never bow to threats from any nation. Others carried signs demanding transparency, accusing the government of hiding the truth from the very people who elected them to serve. The mood was electric, tense, and deeply unpredictable. Police lines held firm as crowds pressed closer to the barriers. Helicopters circled overhead, their rotors cutting through the noise below. News cameras captured every confrontation, every chant, every moment of friction between protesters and security. This wasn't political theatre or staged outrage. This was a country grappling with genuine uncertainty, and a public that refuses to be kept in the dark, while their government makes decisions that could affect every person in the nation. By evening, similar gatherings had formed in Manchester, Birmingham, and Edinburgh. The crisis was no longer confined to Westminster, it had spread across the country.